All right, everyone, this is Mr. Wyrick, and I'm here this evening to try to talk to you about the notes for March 1st. Happy March. This is going to be 327 kites and 328 trapezoids. So right off the bat, we have on our second slide, the one after the title slide, it's trapezoids. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with one pair of parallel sides. You can see on the ones I have posted on these page, on these ones that I have posted on the page, it's the top and bottom that are the parallel sides, but those can be rotated 90 degrees, however many degrees, so it doesn't have to be the top and bottom. It can be left and right, it can be whatever. So those parallel sides are called the bases of the trapezoid. The other sides are called the legs. Now, we're more used to the ones like the bottom, where it's an isosceles trapezoid, but the one over on the right-hand side of the page is still a trapezoid. It doesn't matter which way the angles form. It doesn't matter if they're all the same. It's just really that we have exactly one pair of parallel sides, and the other sides are not parallel, okay? We have the base angles, and they are formed with the bases and the legs. They work in pairs. So it's typically the ones at the top or the ones at the bottom. But again, it's where your parallel sides are. So they will still add up to 360 degrees like any other quadrilateral. So be on the lookout for that. If you have congruent legs, the ones on the sides of these, you have an isosceles trapezoid. That also means that the base angles at the bottom are going to be the same, and that means the base angles at the top are going to be the same. If we look on the next slide, it starts talking a little bit more specifically about isosceles trapezoids. A, B, C, D is isosceles. The base angles, which would be A and D, and then B and C, those would be congruent. If a trapezoid has a pair of congruent base angles, you can tell that it's isosceles from just that, just like an isosceles triangle. And if the diagonals are congruent, you can prove that it is an isosceles trapezoid. Has to do with like overlapping triangles, things of that nature, so that you can prove the different pieces are the same. On the next slide, this is very important. This is one that's going to be on your review. It's one that's going to be on your test. This is the midsegment of a trapezoid. The trapezoid midsegment theorem says that the midsegment of a trapezoid is parallel to each base, and its measure is half the sum of the lengths of the bases, which means if you look at this picture here, you can see that point E is the midpoint of AB, and point F is the midpoint of CD. So if you take AD and add BC to it and divide by 2, you'll get the length of EF, that middle segment there. So that's the mid-segment theorem. There's a couple of questions like that on the review. Remember, we're not doing this as a separate assignment. So it's just going to be on the review, and it's going to be on the test, so make sure you understand that. The next one is the next shape. It's a kite. A kite is a quadrilateral with exactly two pairs of consecutive congruent sides. It's, just like you're going to fly a kite, like this is the shape that I always associate with Charlie Brown's kite that gets stuck in the tree. The opposite sides are neither congruent nor parallel. So this is a parallelogram where you have taken it and rotated it. So where you would have the congruent ones, if you took like the top half of this one in the picture and flipped it over, you would have a parallelogram. So this is flipped the other way to where the congruent sides are next to each other. On the next slide, you can see a little bit more about what's going on with the kite. The diagonals of the kite are perpendicular. So we have something there like we would have with the squares, with the rhombi. Angles B and D in this one, the ones on the left and right hand side, on the previous slide it was the top and bottom, those are congruent angles. The other angles that are not congruent, so angle A and C in this one, those are going to be bisected by the diagonal that runs through there. So you end up with 4 right triangles and they are congruent in pairs of 2. You can kind of see how that's split up on there. That's actually the end of the notes on this one. There's going to be some questions about the angles of a kite. There's going to be some questions about that trapezoid mid-segment theorem and being able to identify a trapezoid on the review on the test. So make sure you understand that stuff. Make sure you have any questions ready for me when I come back. Remember, you're going to get the review today. You have some time to work on it again tomorrow, and hopefully everything goes well for you. Good luck.